Don't sleep. They're watching our every move. Iran, Russia, China, North Korea, ISIS, Al-Qaeda. They may be watching this right now. Our military should not be mistaken for a cable news gabfest show. We don't care what you look like. We don't care who you voted for, who you worship, what you worship, who you love. It doesn't matter if your dad left you millions when he died or if you knew who your father was. We have been honed into a machine of lethal moving parts that you would be wise to avoid if you know what's good for you. We will not be intimidated. We will not back down. We've seen war. We don't want war. But if you want war with the United States of America, there's one thing I can promise you, so help me God. Someone else will raise your sons and daughters.
Yeah. Drinking dope turned me to a superhero. Yeah. Hit that.
And welcome to News from the Pew, ladies and gentlemen, where we take stuff from the internet and we talk about it. I am your host, Rick Barrett, the Armed Catholic, and I am joined by two members of my panel today. We are joined by the godfather of YouTube alternative media, the one and only Steve Cunningham, and back from his sabbatical, we have the one and only Fawaz Yazi.
It's great to introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, right? Just in case they don't know who you are.
Name is Enoch. I've been sober for 2 months now. I enjoy long walks at the beach. Oh, come on.
That's right. We had him in a rehab program. That's really the whole thing. So it's good to have you gentlemen on with me today. And we got some stuff to discuss here on the program. And it starts all out with the tragic events that took place in Sydney. I'm sure you all heard of what happened with the bishop down there, but if not, you can take a look.
I don't have the video of the guy being stabbed. I just got his after party.
Thank you, Steve. It's the well coordinated production of this show. That's
all right. I apologize. Everyone else has got. If you want to watch him get stabbed, type it in. Then
I didn't know if you even had like a newsreel of it or something of that.
Everyone else has got. No, it's just him. Just it's an AI of him reading his from the news down in Australia, down under.
Oh, okay.
It's a post-stab video. We do everything post-stab.
Okay, well, if you want to roll that, that'd be great.
So anyway, he got stabbed. If you don't know what's going on, he got some dude was a Muslim, ran up to him during the liturgy, stabbed him. The knife didn't come out. You've seen it. Everyone else has been talking about it. Here's his response video, I guess.
Whoever has done this act, and I say to him, "You're my son. I love you. And I will always pray for you. And whoever sent you to do this, I forgive them as well. In Jesus' mighty name. I have nothing in my heart but love for everyone. Whether that person is a Christian or not, it's totally beside the point. The Lord Jesus always taught us to love one another. I'm doing fine, recovering very quickly. We thank the Lord Jesus. So there is no need to be worried or concerned. We need to be always law-abiding citizen as well. We need to cooperate with the police directives, whether it be at a state level or a federal level. We are very blessed to be Aussies. But above all, we are Christians and we need to act like it.
Yeah, so, I guess I can see why people think he's a plant, because first thing he does is say, support your local government. And, that's not something we are big fans of, but it is what it is in that regard. And it was a tragedy to see. And it was actually kind of funny because it was split between people who are like, oh, this is terrible, because his sermons are very popular on Instagram and other places for his one-liners. But there are people being like, oh, well, he's anti-Catholic, so who cares? And all this other kind of stuff. And people are saying, oh, no, he's fine. I don't know. Fawaz, what was your thoughts when you saw this thing take place?
Well, good to be with you guys again. Really, is he a heretic? Yes. Does that matter? No. It's still he's with the capability that he has. he's trying to reach an audience towards our Lord. I think he's a, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he's an historian in his way of thinking. He does not believe that Our Lady is the mother of God, because I think he does separate the human and the divine person, which is Nestorius. Now, my problem is not so much of him being a heretic. I think that goes beyond the point. The fact that he's made an image of God and he's a person that was attacked, that should be the main focus. So prayers, of course, and just more for his, concern for his soul, concern for his well-being. That should be our first focus always, even when it comes to our enemies. As a matter of fact, that's what makes Catholicism just so much greater than any other religion. The fact that we don't really have an eye for an eye, a tooth for tooth. We have love your enemies, as our Lord has said, and that's the hardest thing to do. And I'm glad that he's going the route that he's going, because this is public. It's everywhere. And his I guess explanation and his response to the stabbing is the right response, no matter what the situation is. Forgiving is not an emotion. You could still have some type of, sometimes you can't help these things. It's because part of the, concupiscence is part of the lower passions that, you end up having some animosity towards someone to try to hurt you, some anger. But the fact that he goes beyond that, and that's what makes virtue so great. That's what makes the divine forgiveness so great. It goes beyond the emotional latitude. It becomes a choice in the will to forgive, and the fact that he did that. And I still remember today a lot of folks. If you go back in the 80s when Pope John Paul II was shot, he went to visit the poor soul that was brainwashed into shooting him, and he forgave him at this jail cell. And imagine how many people that gesture brought into the faith, brought into because when you actually practice in a very divine way what our Lord said, as difficult as it is, that white martyrdom, that dying to yourself, is what actually ends up multiplying the church. It's not just the red martyrdom that multiplies the church; it's the white martyrdom too. And he almost became a red martyr. He almost became a martyr for the faith. If that guy, that Muslim, went after him for the sake of him being a follower of Christ. So with that being said, I like the approach that he went, because I think it could bring a lot of souls to God, regardless of how he actually felt inside. And forgiveness is the right way to approach it. We all need to pray not only for him, but also for the person doing the stabbing, because let's be honest, a lot of folks today, they're so removed from reality. There's so much hatred in their heart that they'll go after anybody. And a lot of times it's just how the system is created, and how their faith has been brainwashed them into thinking that killing for the sake of their God is virtuous and heroic, but in all reality, it's just evil.
Yeah, that's really the whole thing. And you had a bunch of people outside of the arguing about whether he was a heretic or not, talking about it was good that he did it. And I have thoughts about that, obviously, that I'm going to discuss in a minute, but I want to get Steve's thoughts on all of that. Steve, your thoughts on that event?
I like the response I didn't think much of when I follow a bunch of alternate media, so that's why I saw the response was these guys, like there's a dude out in England that mentioned he's not on the team at all or anything like that. He's mentioned something about being a plant. Is he was this a psyop or something, because of the way he responded about obeying authority, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is kind of something that's subsidiary in Catholic teaching. We're supposed to respect authority. We're supposed to follow authority, and obviously not like blind sheep in a sense, or just, hey, follow, walk off this bridge or anything like that, or take a dangerous injection, or you're fired, or whatever. But he's I think isn't he, for like I said, is this guy in Australia? I had no clue who this guy was until everyone and their brothers started talking about him and making videos about it and showing the stab and all that. You could have put a gun to my head, no pun intended, but you literally could. And I go, just pull it. I have no idea who this guy is. I haven't seen a video. I haven't seen anything. So that was interesting what Fawaz was saying about being a historian. I didn't know he didn't. It was like, because all of a sudden, all the media guys were all like, he's my guy. You know, we don't care what we think, what he thinks or anything like that. He's schismatic, heretic, whatever. It's just, is he on our side on this political situation or not? You see that with Trump. You see that with Brandon. You see that with, whoever it is, the flavor of the day, DeSantis, whoever. They say the right thing for one time. We're a fan club of his is going to get 60,000 more subscribers. We're going to have people flock to him all over the place. Russell Brand was talking about him. I mean, literally everybody was talking about this guy. I mean, well, you got Brand out there, Florida, talking about saying the rosary, and you got, which is great. And then all of a sudden, people are trying, I want him on my show. I want this guy on my show. I need him. We need to pray for him to convert. Great. How can we pray for everybody to convert? Just like we're not praying for Trump, we're praying for not everyone else besides Trump to convert. Trump's the only person we're asking to be converted. Or we're not saying prayers for Brandon. We're not saying prayers for a bishop. Like there was a bishop who was the other day just said that that Biden was stupid, a stupid Catholic. I think was his words. Yeah. Are we, not saying that, hey, we want, these easy, gotcha one-liners, but, he's getting creamed by the quote unquote haters out there about what he just said. But aren't we supposed to be praying for Joe to convert? We're supposed to be making sacrifice for your governor and things like that. And are we supposed to be praying for a guy that's, like I said, I had no idea as an historian at all. So are we praying for him to convert, like Fawaz was bringing up and things like that? So, yeah, I mean, I found the response because I didn't care about looking up everyone. If you haven't seen the video of him being almost stabbed, maybe he lived underneath a rock. I mean, everywhere I looked, I saw that, kind of like the other thing that just happened about 25, 30 minutes ago that we're wondering if Rick was involved in or not.
We'll see. John, we're talking about the bishop in Sydney, the one who was stabbed. Your thoughts on him, the response overall?
Well, I mean, I'd say kind of like a blend of what Fawaz and Steve has said. I mean, he's said and done some good things, but all it takes is a quick Google search to see that you could say his theological life is an absolute mess. All right. I mean, I think Fawaz's guess is probably the best we could do. That he's an historian based on where he was in 2014. Guy was ordained a priest, and then 2 years later made a bishop, and then a few years later, the ancient Church of the East, which is essentially an historian, booted him out for theological differences. So who knows if he's even an historian? I mean, it's So I guess you could say we at least have two lessons from his life, right? One is that if you say good things, Satan is not cool with that. And so he's going to probably send some of his minions after you. But, as we should always remember, the enemy of my enemy is not necessarily my friend, at least not in the theological sense, right? And so I'm sure he's got some profound ways of saying the current world is I could fill in some choice four-letter words here, but you get the point, right? I mean, the world's going to hell in a handbasket, so it doesn't take a genius or a saint to point that out, And so I think the problem is, your average Catholic is a bit like a squirrel out there, like look, he just did something cool. And it's like, it doesn't really take a ton to just say, okay, the world's going to hell in a handbasket. So what is the proper response? Is it to be like St. Paul said to St. Timothy, turned this way and that by the latest blowing of the wind, basically a change in doctrine? No, probably the best thing is just to more or less do what Steve has been yelling at us all to do for the last decade now, and that is just take care of your state and life, and then do what Fawaz says and get a little bit of a philosophical grounding under ourselves before we lose our mind to the latest ploy the Antichrist and his minions are going to throw at us. And if all else fails, do what Rick has been telling us to do and grab a gun and just, hunker down and get holy with your family. And at least we can do that. We can all do that. So I'm just saying, more or less, I'm sure he's saying a few good things, but it doesn't take a ton to do that. Ergo, probably just say, all right, God bless the guy. I hope he gets better. I hope he comes back to the one church, so he's not starting his own church, after becoming a bishop within 3 years again, because that's not the way to have any sort of sanity in the theological life.
Anybody ever seen basketball? Jonathan made me think of that when he talked about how we have a short attention span. He's talking, it's the guys from South Park, the creator. They create this new game called basketball. And one guy's talking to Trey, goes, people most have the attention spans of a nanosecond. And he looks at him and he's looking at a birdie like, already lost his train of thought.
So let me just get my points on that. Everybody's obviously the theological side and talking about all that's fantastic. Let me address the actual congregation. And this was my big thing from the beginning, was how, especially in a place like Australia where Catholicism is Christianity is under attack, and the rule of law, kind of like what we're seeing here, is starting to go away increasingly. Why wouldn't, and I know it's not their idea, but why wouldn't you take the steps to prevent something like this from happening? My big thing with everybody is, how would you respond if a guy walked up in the middle of a sermon, homily, whatever you want to call it, and allow that to happen? And I think it's because people in the West are still too much operating under the assumption of, it's not going to happen in my church, or it's not going to happen where I live. Or if it does happen, me and like 5 guys with Kimbers will stop it, even though we don't have any training, even though we've never practiced, even though we don't do anything else but go to the gun range. We're going to stop it. We're going to do that. Sorry, folks. It's actually never going to happen that way. Obviously I'll show for myself. TheArtCatholic.com. I can always come out and talk to you guys about what you can do in order to get the training that's necessary. But folks, you need to wake up. Nobody is coming to save you. Nobody's going to defend you. Men, you are going to have to actually defend your parishes. All right. If you're gonna allow some guy, and even if the guy was a Christian and he just wanted to shake the bishops or your priest is up on the altar. Right? Mass is taking place. It's not a meet and greet time. It's not a shaky hands time. It's not any of this other kind. There should not be any reason you let a man walk all the way up. So that's really a litmus test for every single man who goes to church often or goes. And so that's something that I really believe a lot of people aren't getting. And some people got mad at me because some people said, oh, it's a good thing they took care of the bishop quickly. No. I mean, yeah, technically. It's not a good thing, though, because you allowed it to happen. Okay, that was the mistake. You sat there and watched the guy try to kill your spiritual leader. Sorry, folks, you got to be men. The time has come upon you. Got to stop posting memes about crusaders. You got to stop posting things about retaking Jerusalem or, the life of a knight or all this other kind of stuff. Because the memes and stuff, they're fun. I love them. Go to my Twitter page or I'm all about them. But you're too comfortable doing that. You're not ready. And let me just make everybody, you're not ready to defend your church right now. You're just not. Now, some are. I've been to a couple places. There's a place in Dallas that's ready to go. I won't mention their name, but you guys know if you're watching. There's a couple others that are ready to go. But most of you guys, when I talk to you, you're like, oh, yeah, me and like 3 guys are watching the door. Are you? Are you actually watching the door? Probably not. So that was my biggest takeaway is the men of the church are not ready for this. Everybody else is, but we're not. And you can get mad at me and you can call me whatever kind of names and blah, 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 blah. It's the fact. Oh, Rick, you're just shilling for your thing. No, don't use me. Find somebody, do what you got to do. But you need to take steps. Nobody's coming to save you. Nobody's going to, you're not going to turn into a knight of Jerusalem overnight by being like JS Vault and I have a Kimber or I have a clock. And great. How many people shoot themselves accidentally because they don't know how to use their gun? So anyway, that's my little mini rant on that. That was the biggest thing I took away from it, is that everybody was kind of like, oh, good thing they helped him. Yeah, good thing you watched him get stabbed. Great job, guys. A+ work there.
Well, Rick, correct me if I'm wrong, but the blade didn't actually open. That was something that was a malfunction. So he could have been a lot worse, because the reaction time wasn't great. He could have been dead. The reaction time was actually horrible. Guy's literally walking up. He's walking up. It's like it was sitting down. It's like, what do you do in that situation, Rick? Like, what? I don't want you giving free information here, but what do you do in that situation?
Start the timer, because I only do so much before I start charging like a lawyer. Let me give you an example. I was at Our Lady of Mount Carmel in Louisiana for the Crusader Congress. I was able to carry there, unlike in Texas, which is a little different. But I was carrying my firearm, and so what I did is I went all the way to the back. I sat on the inside, right where the aisle was, and I just kept my, I would occasionally do the old neck roll to the back to see if anything had changed, and kind of see if there was any, if a dude who looks like that walks into a Catholic church or an Eastern Orthodox church or something like that, your radar should go off.
Right. Because
especially if he's going to a place like that, he's not dressed the same way as everybody. Yeah. He's not acting the same way as everybody. And really, it doesn't hurt if you just if you see that and you kind of just step in front of him, you're like, hey, what are you doing here? And then try to stop it. The farther away from the actual altar, the better. But if you have to stop him at the front, we actually had an example of this on Easter in New York, where the Palestinians broke up a mass to protest the genocide or whatever that's happening in Gaza. So, and the ushers just let them walk straight up to the front. I think there's this idea of inaction that people get so scared, like, oh, I don't want to offend, I don't want to offend this. What if he is? Well, if he is, then you say, I'm sorry, sir, and then you let him go. Okay. At this point, if you're not a part of that place, you should be expected to do that.
We had that in Denver. Jonathan might have been leading the choir at this time. I was usher, and it ended up being a guy that converted from Islam was in there, and no one noticed him. And the head usher asked me, "Hey, can you stand next to that guy and make sure he doesn't do it?" No one knew what was going on, and I kind of was like, "Okay, sure, no problem, whatever." Go skate up next to him. He's like, "Hey, what's up, dude?" I was a shadow for the rest of the liturgy.
Yeah. I mean, that's what you have to do. I mean, there's even more levels. The stuff I'm talking about is like, if your church has like an 8 and a 10:30, you should go to the 8:30 and then volunteer to sit in the parking lot at the 10:30. You know what I mean?
Can I ask you a question, Rick?
Yeah, absolutely.
So here's the other situation I think people don't think about. Different states have different laws, rightfully so.
Yep.
Like you saw the guy in New York who choked out that one guy in the subway just to say, and now he's getting, prosecuted for it. Sometimes if you defend your priest or defend your parish, you get in trouble because some state has some law that says you can't do anything, blah, blah, blah. Is there any place somebody could go that could look at your state laws to see what the self-defense?
Yeah, there's a bunch of different places. Usually if you just Google self-defense laws New York, there will be a lawyer that does personal injury or something like that that'll have a list of them. So let me give you two things for that. Okay, you can't physically assault or push or touch somebody that's coming up there. That doesn't mean 6 of you guys can't stand in front of them and not let them through.
Right.
If you catch him at the back and you just kind of make a wall, and he can scream all he wants, and then you kind of just do the slowly step, like a phalanx almost, or step, step, step. You're not touching them, you're just kind of pushing them back. If there's no way for them, because their goal is to get to the altar. Their goal is to get to the altar, and if there's no way there, they may scream a little bit, but they'll get frustrated and leave. And the second one, which may be a little bit more extreme, is, at this point, do you obey the laws of man or God if it gets to that point? That's a question. A lot of people are you ready to serve some jail time in order to keep if you love your priest and you believe in the faith and you do all that stuff, are you ready to go to jail for them?
Right. No,
and that is a question nobody in these United States, no man in these United States is ready to ask.
That's a good point.
Just be like, do the Fresh Prince style. I mean, throw Jazzy Jeff out.
Oh, I thought you meant slap him.
Just throw him out.
Just throw him out. It's Jazzy Jeff style.
Do the Uncle Phil.
Yeah, you tell me you don't go. If someone brings up a court, you say, "I was just being like Uncle Phil." Tell me that judge ain't going to laugh.
You may laugh when he hit the hammer, but he'll definitely get a good chuckle out of
you. Yeah.
Maybe he'll take a couple weeks off because of it. But yeah, that's a problem too. Is a lot of guys that question you asked was is a really good question because they're like, oh well, I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to go to jail. What happens? Am I going to lose my job? What's the blowback on that? Am I going to get sued by the guy? These are the questions that men need to take the time and ask themselves about.
Good point.
So, yeah, I kind of know what I'm doing in this very small niche. I do kind of have an idea of what I'm doing, but it is a question that I have to hoop and holler like, guys, it's not good what happened. Yes, he's alive, thanks be to God, but that's an absolute 100% failure at every single level, and y'all need to do something different about it. And so if it's just guys standing outside. I mean, think about that. If you have somebody on the inside in the narthex at every door, that's kind of like an idea where ushers actually could make a difference, where it's not like your job isn't to say like all are welcome. Your job is to be like, hey, who are you? And welcome. Yeah, that's great. But you out of town, this and that, the other thing. And if you just give up, if you throw a box, because their big thing is no obstacles. Right, their whole thing is they want to get in there, get to the front, cause the disruption. Anything that prevents them or slows them down, buys you time, is always helpful.
There you go.
So that's my half a cent on that whole thing. But it was a very impactful thing because we had a lot of crack Catholics and Christians like everybody saying, oh, I claim him, he's mine, he's based, he's super based, oh, he's a heretic, oh, he hates Catholics, oh, he's this. And I think you guys are 100% correct. He's just he's like a ping pong ball at this point. He kind of just bangs around, bing, 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 wherever the spirit leads him, I guess. So, but thanks be to God, he's not dead, because that gives him time to convert. So that's really the most important part. Hopefully this will teach him that time is running short and that he needs to get on the right team, if you will. But speaking of time running short, does anybody have anything else on that? Okay, cool. Speaking of time running short, we have Middle East War 600,425 that just started last night between the Iranians and the Israelis. If you want, I think we have. I know we have some video on this one, Steve. So if you want to help me out, roll that beautiful thing.
Did not take credit for it, but if you come to think,
Israel at war day 196
launched 350 drones.
I lost count.
Cruise missiles, ballistic missiles at Israel did not manage to cause a little damage, and here Israel with one, as our friend Rafi said, with one missile launched from Syrian sky managed to hit. And it is a very sophisticated response, Emily. And why is that? Because we do not want to draw Iran into a full-fledged confrontation now with Israel. So it's a limited answer, but it's a very effective answer. And at the same time, we can preserve what is most important, the coalition which was built last Saturday night in Israel, States, Great Britain, France to a lesser extent, but still France, some Arab countries, and this is of utmost importance for the future, so that Iran should know that if it thinks again to attack Israel, it's not only Israel it will confront, but a coalition which will stand strong against them. So I believe that tonight was a success if Israel indeed did that.
Anyway, let's talk about some geopolitics. A latest update on the story that we've been following since, in fact, this whole week, what is happening in the Middle East. So now Israel carried out a series of strikes on Iran early hours of Friday. That's today. And the news comes less than a week after Iran actually fired a barrage of drones and missiles.
I gotta tell you, did you see that Netflix is making, was it the King Henry VIII's second wife, a black lady?
Cardi B.
That we were talking about just in this week at Israel. So now, Iran's the IRGC's senior commander has threatened to attack Israeli nuclear sites with advanced weapons So it's like a back and forth now, back and forth, back and forth. That's what we are now seeing at this point in time. So if this happens, I only wonder what would be the result of that. So the nuclear sites with advanced weapons, if it targets Iranian atomic facilities in retaliation for the weekend missile and drone barrage. So General Ahmed, the Guards commander in charge of nuclear security, said Iran could even review its nuclear doctrine.
Doctrine? I'm French.
By a fake Zionist regime against our country's nuclear facilities aimed at pressuring the Islamic Republic, reconsidering our nuclear doctrine and policy, and violating the considerations announced before will be likely and imaginable. It is possible for the Islamic Republic and its armed forces to retaliate using advanced weapons if any threats of acts by the fake Zionist regime take place against our nuclear facilities, and the regime's nuclear centers will definitely be attacked.
We will attack you.
Okay, so now the developments that happened today.
Yeah.
We will bomb you. We'll send Nicki Minaj to bomb you.
Chronicles. That should have been the name of the show. Chronicles of Prophecy.
I mean, it's absolutely insane. The whole, I don't know, guys. It's just constant. And say what you will about Trump, having a crazy guy in the Oval Office who was like, "I'm nuking everybody if you touch Israel," was kind of nice, because at least there was a 5-second claim of will he really actually nuke us if we touch Israel? Unlike Joe Biden, who I think is still asleep right now, while this whole thing is falling apart.
That's the thing with the sleeping. I mean, Trump fell asleep at his thing, and everyone's like, "Oh, look at Trump being asleep." Everyone has to go after to give a little. Here's some red meat over here for these guys, and red meat for these guys.
It's all over the place. But we're gonna go in order. John, Waz, Steve. John, your thoughts on Israel being at war for 200 plus days, starting, I guess, on October 7th and continuing this. And just the U.S. is, and you've talked about this before when we talked about Gaza and how the GOP has, catcalled, or not catcalled, but kind of pipered the idea of Israel, the Holy Land, into conservatism's almost obligation, if you will, to support them. I think you mean
Skynet got him.
Yeah, that's
it's already
right.
been operational for 3 weeks.
Yep. Oh, wrong one.
Rick is usurping Jonathan's
I am. I'm trying to take over.
Taking his identity.
Man, I was gone. Flaz, you go. What do you think?
Oh, should we wait for Rick? Okay. All right, here goes nothing. Regarding the whole situation, so I got a threefold. I'll keep it quick. Number one, war benefits this small minority of elites because all the money gets funneled in, because we can afford to print more money and have the middle class eat it through inflation and funnel into weapons so that we can take care of everybody else's border. The WEF and all those guys, all their plans are for the 2030. You have to have war to accomplish what you want to accomplish. You have to establish, if you want to establish a one world government, you have to establish chaos before you have the one entity that's going to rule everything come in and say, we are the saviors. And this is how you usher in the Antichrist. All right. Now, whatever prophecy you want to accept or believe in, now, prophecy is real because we know it's a fact for it's real. But one thing that we have to be careful with as Catholics is how to interpret prophecy and how it unfolds and unpacks in real life. The date and time and how this is going to, first of all, God, he doesn't change his mind, but he's decreed from the very beginning how these things are going to unfold. We don't know. So we have to be very careful with the whole, in 2025, it'll be the 3 days of darkness. In 2030, it's going to be the 100-year anniversary since our Lord went to our sister Lucia. It's like you can unfold that all day. It's just it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you just have to sit and wait and see what God does. But if we see the plans of ushering the Antichrist come in, there has to be chaos and disorder for us to get a savior, and that's I think where they're going. Number two, the other problem is you have to get the U.S. involved. And they're trying to because they're going after Israel, and Israel is the U.S.'s greatest ally. I mean, the greatest ally for the U.S. is Israel. We've given them billions of dollars. We're responsible for their dome. We're responsible for all of their weapons. We've literally kept them safe. The taxpayer. That's what people forget. The American taxpayer is keeping the entire world safe.
My favorite meme in life.
Yeah, this is exactly what it is. It's pretty much what it is. But here's the problem. If you get the U.S. involved, then Russia gets involved and China gets involved. I mean, now we're talking about an actual World War III, a real one. Not, some, people say we're in a World War III right now, but you got some places in the Middle East that have been going at it for centuries. They're going at it right now. It doesn't become real until you get these super big powers going at one another. And that's what really, it benefits only the elite. It benefits those who have the money to funnel the money into the weapons, to become billionaires, and to protect themselves and their families, and to be able to control the population. That's what it really is. No war is good. Only a very, very, very small window of just war where you have to protect your citizens is reasonable. But to send American sons, and unfortunately, this shouldn't be the situation, but they're sending daughters to die because some problems between the Middle East countries are having issues. The third thing that people don't look at is look at all the Democrats that are letting in all the illegals for the border. It ain't women and children. It ain't those who have been starving or been destitute. It's young military-age men, because they know that American men who have been fighting for this country for the longest time don't want to fight for this administration because they've literally made it gay. So the fact that you have to fly in, and what do? You join the military, you fight for our side, you can become a citizen, we'll fast track your citizenship. Now you become a future voter. You stay in power for the rest of eternity. So can Trump come in and fix this? I think there's some things he did for the military that was good. Telling the trans community they can't join, putting more money in actual, building up the military, drilling so we can get gas, and all of these things that's going to help the economy, help the country, helps the military, and helps us keep the world safer. I don't see a scenario, unless they put him in, I don't see a scenario where he gets in by voting. So the idea of being in the state of grace and actually praying and becoming holy just became real, because come November, when Biden is installed as the king of this country, it's going to get worse, and we're going to go usher right in to the 2030 agenda, which is what Steve is probably going to talk about now.
Yeah, Steve. Well, before we get to Steve, let's get John's thoughts on this whole thing. If you remember, conservatives being directed to support Israel, our strongest neighbor, blah, 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 all that stuff. John.
Hello. Hello.
You sound like Kane when he would have the thing on before.
Sorry, you smoked for 30 years there, John.
Take that mic out. It's not working.
While he's working on that, no worries. Steve, you're in.
Oh, yes. Most favored nation. Yes. Well, here's a couple things. Here's a failure to this was that they were talking about that first video. There was an attack last night. So what happened? There was an attack a couple days ago. Everyone thought that we were going into World War III. Anyway, here's what happened last night. They said, and it looks like failure to Israeli attack confirmed. Looks like Israel shot missiles, but they did not reach Iran. Now, Israel promised that they had to retaliate. Even everyone said, don't do it. Brandon was out there saying, don't do it, man, please. But Benny had to do it for God knows why. Anyway, it looks like nothing was happening, as Last American Vagabond was talking about. Large accounts saying that Israel attacked Iran, yet Iranian media was reporting no explosions in the area. As his great line is, question everything. Again, when you see any of this happen, question everything. Yes, do you? And I mean, I was telling my guys, hey, just in case this is real, they close off the Strait of Hormuz, your gas price is going to be 12, 10, 15 dollars a gallon. It's going to go up, $500 a barrel for gas. Go fill up your tank. I think it's just all, media support, really. I mean, here's Robert Inakash talking about Iran's response against Israel was calculated, but not if you listen to Western media. Exactly, because what they were doing was, for almost 2 weeks, Iranians announced they would carry out a retaliatory strike against Israel, playing mind games with their enemy by releasing plenty of intelligence chatter that created speculation over when and how the operation would take place. Iran then, 72 hours prior to the attack, informed the United States as well as a number of regional nations, any links to it here, of their intention to launch strikes against Israel, despite Turkey, Iraq, and Jordan all affirming that Tehran gave the wide warning prior to this attack. Washington has attempted to deny this in order to argue that Iran sought to inflict greater damage than it did. Anyway, could you just read on to it? It's, again, all just, it's drama. Just like the Trump thing, it's drama TV. Great TV stuff, which we'll get into that later too. Here's The Sun, show of force. U.S. parades 12 nuclear stealth bombers and vows jets are, quote, ready to strike anywhere, anytime amid Middle East tensions. Now, Lindsey Graham is probably somewhere. We don't want to know what he's doing right now because he cannot wait to invade Iran. His love language is war with Iran. I mean, he's probably digging up Joe McCain and sitting him like Weekend at Bernie's, sitting together and having a cocktail, watching. Look what's going on, baby. It's coming true. Benny Netanyahu, who's he's a son of a terrorist, by the way, has done what the world warned him not to do. He did it anyways, even though, again, they kind of. But there was another meme talking about how here's how Israel bombs Iran. It was a drone. Here's how they bomb regular people and the destruction of Gaza. Here's Israel fired 3 missiles in limited strike. The pentagram. The Pentagon or pentagram, whichever way you want to call it. I think pentagram is the best way to describe it. Speeding up work on first new nuclear warhead in 40 years because, as Fawaz brought up with China, they cannot wait to do something with China. They had a meeting with Japan and Indonesia the other day. I mean, even here in North Kakalaki, the Prime Minister of Japan came by to talk about relations with North Carolina and Japan, and they went up to D.C. and spoke perfect English, as people in Japan said, I didn't know he spoke that great English. But notice they meant mid-2030s. Everything's got to be in the 2030 area. Are they massive? That's a different one we were talking about. Forgot about her. Then we'll move on. Sorry. U.S. crude oil gains as Israel reportedly prepares for attack by Iran this weekend. This was April 12th. So, again, they knew this was coming. This is CNBC. That was before the first attack. So anybody make any money off that? Ukrainian officials are jealous of U.S. defense of Israel during Iran attack. Oh, don't worry. We got Mike Johnson wanting to get more money anyways. Israel tells U.S. has no choice but to respond to Iran because we just got to, we got to kill some people. It's in the name of God.
Bombs aren't going to drop themselves, brother.
Exactly. Well, we got these bombs, so what are we going to do with it? Israel says Iran launched more than 300 drones and missiles, 99% of which were intercepted. Here's activist post. Was Iran strike against Israel a psyop? I would say, yeah. I mean, what's going on in D.C.? How's everyone going? We're getting ginned up for war, and people in Iran are probably going, we had it, we told them what we were going to do. Nobody died. We just shot up a couple things and nothing was going on. And we trying to make a bigger mound out of a molehill because we're DC. Iran attack delays Israel invasion of Rafah. So there's a lot more to this onion, ladies and gentlemen, on things like this. And it's one of the right hand is coming in doing something, and the left hand has got the solution. It's creation. And here's the answer. Whatever you're getting told on the TV, the media is going to tell you how to think, what to think. Oh, these guys, bad guys. Here's what's going on. Trump. We got because Fawaz brought the Trump thing. We got days of our Trump up and going on. We got the trial going on. It's great TV. You're tagged in. What's going on now? Biden's doing this. Trump's doing this. The good versus the bad. We heard that story before. Come November, we're going to have the fight of our lifetime. It's the election of your lifetime until 2 more years later, and then 2 more years after that, and then 2 more years after that, and 2 more years after that. It's going to be the next election, most important of your lifetime. Why we got a Civil War movie coming out? this month during Confederate History Month. And it's an assassination against Trump. They're doing like this. Look at all these going on right here. They are programming our minds for God knows what. But the regular Joe Hoploid, not saying that we have the intelligence to keep away from all this stuff and we have some kind of Gnostic idea to stay away, but great googly moogly. Is it just bizarro world out there? Just turn off, again, great example. Father Basil, I got him on. The recording's coming on tonight. And he talks about just, kind of click and just get off. And if we get nuked, as long as you're in a state of grace, who cares? Now, if you set yourself on fire, you got nothing that you can't. I can't help you with that one, which we could do. That's another added into the Trump drama TV. Oh, we're focused on this. Hey, what's going on? You should be on there typing what else is going on. Look, whatever the fire that just happened, what else is going down? They're going for the surveillance state. Incredible surveillance state thing going down. Check out Whitney Webb's article and spoke on that. We talked about it last week. Massey's coming out with it more. Dude, and someone had an article. Skynet just went activated. But we're all focused on whatever this bishop is in Australia. We're focused on the war. We're focused on Trump standing outside saying the air conditioner was working too hard and I fell asleep and here's all this waste of my time. Now it's got people captivated. And Trump will probably be in. And if he does win, what am I going to hear Jack and all those guys say that it's either the first election in the history of elections that was honest or that he was selected to be put in? And you had to admit the 2016 he was put in place.
Yeah, either way, whoever gets installed in November, the Middle East stuff is still going to continue. It's absolutely going to continue because Trump's already pledged and said that he will bomb the hell out of anybody that threatens Israel. So
you have to kiss Israel's ring. Go put your head against the wall to get anywhere, even in a state.
Yep. Yeah, there's a lot of money flowing through those places.
I mean, what your own governor? He has to be more pro-Israel than Biden's trying to be right now.
That's Greg Abbott, so that doesn't really shock me in that regard. One last time, we're going to throw it to John. What do you want to say about this, bud?
Shalom. How did I come up that time? Okay, all right. Shalom. It's the Hebrew word for hello, but also for peace, and so there's always some irony in all these things, and I think that's one of the ironic things, that the word for hello and goodbye, maybe that's part of the irony. Hello and goodbye is shalom, which means peace in Hebrew, and we can't ever get it. I mean, the thing is too, like it's basically just the oldest biblical story in the book. So it's in physical things, in carnal things, two people can't have the same thing at the same time. I mean, it's kind of like the old thing in regard to like classical philosophical physics. Two bodies can't occupy the same place at the same time, right? The same spot. And so that's where all the difficulties stem from, and it's where they're always going to come back to is what can they possess, right? What can each people possess? And there's not really an end to that. The only end to that is changing the perspective, and the only perspective that works on this earth, precisely because it doesn't come from this earth, is the Catholic perspective. Is elevating one's desires to the spiritual things, and the thing that the modern world will never get, because they'll refuse to get it because they're carnal, and so they don't want to see these things, but at the same time they can't right now because they simply haven't asked for it. Is I mean, in the greatest irony of all ironies, the Catholic Church is also the one that protects all of our, you could say, our physical, our carnal reality more than anyone else. And I mean, I'm not just talking about pro-life issues, I'm talking about our right to have property, right? I mean, what has been the only, or you could say, body, I guess, that was able to steer that middle course between Nazism and communism, so both of which wanted to disappropriate people of their goods here on this earth, sometimes or more often than not, even by killing them as well. But it was the Catholic Church, was the only one that had like an actual response to both sides, that was not one and was not the other. right? And at various moments, obviously the U.S. in its foreign policy has sided with one side more than the other, but it's basically just two extremes on either side away from that virtuous middle course the Catholic Church has always offered, right? And basically, the whole thing with Israel too. I don't think for all the other issues that you might have with E. Michael Jones, I think he nailed it most when he focused on the onslaught that the Israelis fired at the Palestinians of pornography when they were trying to take over. Well, at various points, they have used cupidity in regard to the Sixth and Ninth Commandments to try to, effectively freeze them. Not allow them to have the manhood to go out and do what they need to do to fight to keep their own land that they previously owned and had owned for centuries, even millennia. And so I think E. Michael Jones kind of nailed it there when he focused on that aspect, that horrible aspect of Israeli occupation. And the reason I say I think it's so important is I think it has to do a lot with what's wrong with American foreign policy, and that connection with the modern Israeli state is this connection with stands against the Sixth and Ninth Commandment, basically against all the commandments effectively. But there is a real way in which that Judeo-American collaboration in the pornographic industries is kind of like you can find it right there, right? I mean, there's all kinds of vices in the Arab nations. This is not to give them some sort of free pass or anything, but I think you can trace that line of encouraging people to break the Sixth and Ninth Commandments with impunity, and that's like that. That's why you can't separate modern Israeli politics from modern American politics right now. I mean, that to do that would be to kind of go back against that ancient pact, and by ancient I mean a few hundred years. But yeah, I mean that's my one little contribution to that Israeli-American alliance.
Excellent. So Steve wants to talk pro-life next. He wants to talk about the pro-life movement next. So we do whatever Steve wants on the show. So we're gonna.
That would be a good segue.
It's an excellent segue. So we are once again talking about, and we are one of the few that are actually talking about the fact that the pro-life movement is absolutely horrendous in this union, and the response to Trump's milquetoast statement on it just shows how weak-kneed we are. And Steve, if you want to take it from here with that, because I know you want to articulate this point better than I do.
I'll tell you this. We've been talking about it for how long? About
ever since the Dobbs decision came down.
Well, yeah, Dobbs went down, and everyone was picking up champagne and talking about how Roe's gone, and woohoo, Roe's done, and they're still having champagne parties literally until about half a year ago. I remember seeing someone saying we're having a celebration for the end of Roe, and meanwhile at the same time, I forget which state it was, maybe it was Ohio, they were pushing for getting abortion literally enshrined in the state constitution, which Rhode Island, I think, was the first, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And not a peep from the Pro-Life Inc., not a peep from the Catholic area. And, the bishop, I don't think he came out. Now the bishop's okay now calling out Biden for being stupid, which, that's great one-liners, but where is it, just like how this one, we should not telling everyone how to do their job. But if we were really doing our job, I think what that bishop down in Australia happened, I think more of that would probably happen up in these lands if we were being what we're supposed to be. And everyone was upset about Trump, the state right thing, getting rid of it at the state level, which has been on record showing that it works. No one wants to do it because it's not sexy. You see, like Matt Walsh.
It's a lot of hard work, Steve. It's a lot of hard work to actually do that.
It's a lot of hard work, and it's not sexy. You're not going to get the name recognition. You'll get your peers knowing who you are. That guy, when I don't think for a while, I can't remember if Jonathan was on or not. The dude from South Carolina. He was from Greenville, the Taylor's area. I think Jonathan was on that day. And he made a great, just pounded away at how he's not going to go back and not going to vote on this because his constituents did not want that in his count in his city of Taylor's. And people in the Columbia area was just livid at him, upset at him. That doesn't, people still don't know who that guy is. But if you did that in DC, i.e. Thomas Massey, Rand Paul, things like that, you're now household names. So if you do that, if you're a John C. Calhoun, even though we went in DC for a little bit, if you're that kind of guy, people don't know who he is. He's one of the top politicians in U.S. political history. No one has a clue except for Calhoun Street in Charleston, maybe, or the Calhoun Building in Clemson. Outside of that, nobody, they think he's just a bad slave guy. If you're that level of a guy in your state, you're not going to get name recognition. You could clean up the state. You could turn it into a great thing. DeSantis and Noem are probably like one of the only two people even know. Hutchinson, maybe just because her daddy. But outside of that, no one knows anybody in the states. I mean, the lady out in Arizona is getting national recognition because it's they're wanting the abortion. Abortion is everyone's hot topic issue. We need to get a federal thing in because that's going to be the solution, which will bring in. I can't hear. Where's my keys to that car that I don't even know. It will bring in road 2.0, 3.0, 1 to 4.0. Just name it. It's going to kill more babies than anything because we don't want to go to the central. It was state level, decentralize, and get something to solution. Now, everyone was up. Rose over as Fawaz was doing. Rose over. Pat, yay. Leela comes out because it was in an article that the Life News came out with. Annual report: 390,000 children were murdered, 5% increase. I thought things were going down. I thought happy glory days are here again. Government funding moved close to $1 billion. Remember that? Remember we had that article? Trump, it was going up every year. Trump was giving more money too. Remember, we told you 4, 5, 6 years ago this was going on. Government funding, $700 million taxpayer funding in 1 year, 4% increase. Anybody paying any kind of attention saw, yep, we've seen this coming. That Pro-Life Inc. has not done a darn thing. Well, maybe, okay, I'll be lying. They have done something. I don't want to be over the generalization on that. They haven't done anything to stop it across with it. As Jonathan brought this up before, he's kind of commenting on Thomas Aquinas. It's not verbatim, but mainly he says if you change the law without changing hearts, it's going to get worse. We're not changing anybody's heart. We're not converting anybody. We're forcing stuff on people, which, hey, this is a bad thing. We should get it, but we're not changing anybody's heart. So they're getting it worse. As that one city that was going up, it was in Indiana, everyone was making a big deal about the eclipse, is the abortion capital of the states in this little BF town is Illinois, somewhere in southwestern Illinois. How does that happen? Because all these people are coming in. Again, that's thinking locally, acting locally on the bad guy angle. We're not doing anything at the local level for the good guys. How many trad? Let's go trad only. How many trad parishes in the state of Texas? How many in the state of California? How many in the state of Florida? How many in the state of New York? You New Yorkers. They're telling me there ain't 50 guys that can get into an office up in New York, run for gubernatorial in New York. Ain't nobody can do that, even if you lose. You can't at least give it a shot. There ain't none. They can tweet all day. That's one of my things. So go ahead. If we talk about that. Let's convert the nation. Why? But with Twitter, but tweeting about it, tweet harder. Ain't nobody running for us. And again, I love to run. I got to find a place to stay before longer.
You got to find a place to actually run from.
Yeah, I mean, if I move to South Carolina next week, it's not going to be able to pull that off. It's kind of not good to be living in another state, running in. But I mean, that's really the matter. It should be more than just maybe the four of us, more than just me talking about it. How come there ain't everybody that talks about it, yaps about it online, doing something, running for something, or helping promote somebody, get in office, educating somebody? We don't do that. We just tweet harder and tell everybody how much the Pope sucks. And if you don't eat meat on Sunday, you're a terrible person, and that person not veiling is garbage, and things, important issues.
Absolutely.
Who we you asked me to go. I went going. My apologies to the rest of the group.
Nope. And that's a good setup for somebody like Fawaz, who we haven't actually had on the program for a lot of these talks. And we can actually get your thoughts, Fawaz, on Trump's declaration on his, wishy-washy pro-life stance, and the fact that some people were all about it and some people were not, and really the state of the pro-life movement overall from your perspective was?
Yeah, it's a tough one, only because, listen, I can understand principle. I am pro-life from womb to tomb. I'm also pro-life insofar as I don't think war is good. I'm not against a death penalty because that's not so much a pro-life position. It's more of the fact that you have a number one, you're protecting society from a person who's dangerous, who's harmful. And at the same time, people don't forget about this aspect of the death penalty is the more sins you commit and the more you don't want to repent, the deeper you plunge yourself into hell. So it was seen as an act of mercy to end the person's life, to give them one last opportunity to repent. But people don't see anything in the aspect of spiritual anymore. It's all just material. But anyways, I could digress. I can understand Trump's position politically. Morally, I think it's horrible. I can understand his position politically. The reason I can understand his position politically is because abortion is all they have left. That's all they have left. You can't run on the economy because it's tanking on purpose. You can't run on the dollar because it's been inflated to God knows what. You can't run on the border because you've left it wide open. You can't run on crime because you've made the cities more dangerous. You can't run on gas, groceries. The families are struggling today. You can't run on that. So what do? They always go back to the same, that one issue where they can get a bunch of college girls to go out and, suburban women who love their wine and their abortion to go out in droves and vote. So since you can't run anything else but abortion, Trump then was left at a lose-lose situation. Do I go full board like what DeSantis did and say I want a national ban on abortion? Well, you're going to have all of the pro-choicers. You see, there's the guy trying to take away your rights. And you have all these women come out to swing the election, which did in 2022. That's what they did. They went to all the colleges, and this is why we didn't see this red wave that we were supposed to see, because it was abortion. Thanks to Lindsey Graham talking about we're going to have a national ban on abortion. At the same time, if he says, I should we should have abortions up to 16 weeks, the pro-life movement, who doesn't compromise, which they shouldn't, are going to say, well, you just lost my vote because you're just a 1990s Democrat now. I could have would have voted for Clinton. What Trump did is he says, I'm going to punt. I'm going to give it to the states, which is what the whole point of Roe v. Wade is. And instead of the pro-life movement saying, you know what, Trump did punt it to the states, now we're supposed to pick up the ball and move it forward and end abortion in every single state. They're playing, they're virtue signaling, saying you should have said what we wanted to hear. Well, if he would have done that, it would have been over politically. There goes the election for him. So he's really trying to play the political game. He's trying to say, let's get me in, and then we can play the long game like he did with Roe v. Wade. Is he a pro-life? I don't think he is. I think he's all about, the exceptions and having a few exceptions. So do I blame Trump politically? No, it's a smart thing to do. Do I think it was moral? No, I think it's stupid. If you're pro-life, you're pro-life. You better be pro-life. But the Pro-Life Inc. should not virtue signal and say, oh, this is horrible. You guys have been having galas with $1,000 a ticket, having comfortable, dinners ever since Roe v. Wade, raising money, and we've seen no results whatsoever. And God bless the early folks who are chaining themselves to Planned Parenthood, who are being arrested every single day because they were doing it for the sake of children. God bless those guys. And here we are. We pick it back up after their labor, after their sacrifices, and what do? We put somebody up there who gives us the even playing field, and now we decide to have galas and expensive dinners and been celebrating and marching in D.C. and all of a sudden the states have been picking up all these abortion laws. So I don't blame Trump politically, to be honest with you.
Oh, okay, yeah. There is that interesting split down the middle there. where he had to. I mean, you could say he actually had to make a choice in 2016, and he went with the right one. But now I guess he's so, and I'll use the word desperate to get back in the Oval Office. He's willing to make compromises, art of the deal and so forth. But and I know John's opinion on this, but if you just want to make it known to anybody in case it's their first time watching News from the Pew here, your thoughts on this whole thing, John.
I'm going to piggyback on what Fawaz said. I mean, it makes sense because that is what look, democracy. If it's truly the kratia, if it's truly the power of the demos, of the people, and demos, by the way, is kind of a restricted group of people, like it's the influential, the powerful people, or it can be. I mean, it maybe in a somewhat better situation, you can get it to where it's the middle class can be the powerful demos. But I mean, you're never guaranteed of keeping that. And you may think, oh, it's just like highfalutin political philosophy. What does that have to do with me? No, it's the fickle it's fickle human nature. And so maybe having this branch of government which flows from republic or politeia and democracy, maybe it's inclined to slightly less grave evils than an oligarchy or a tyranny. But this is one of the kind of natural things of democracy, according to Aristotle and St. Thomas Aquinas. So it's to be expected. And so that as long as we're, I guess, prepared to deal with that, then I guess it's not that big of an issue. All things considered, because we know we're not, we don't have, in a non-Catholic country, we're not expecting someone who's going to be implementing everything from a Catholic perspective. Now, I mean, the biggest frustration for a Catholic that I think he could then explain to everybody else in America, maybe who's even not Catholic, is that it's not rational. All right. Now, I mean, maybe that will work on a fair number of people. Just say, well, this doesn't, jive with what you said elsewhere, Trump. It's one option, is to just try to show how he's caving to certain interest and see if maybe that pressure will persuade him to go otherwise. I mean, sometimes money talks, sometimes political influence talks, sometimes all kinds of different other pressures talk. But it's just a matter of kind of understanding what American politics is and what can be expected in politics in general.
Yeah, it really is pretty sad in that regard, the place we're at, because we're looking for DC to fix our problems instead of trying to do it at the local level. And every time we try to do that, it just winds up backfiring on us pretty terribly in that regard.
It shows the politic that don't know what they're, the education level. We're like, oh, my guy, he's not supposed to do any. He's not a legislator. He's an executive. His main job is does this follow with the Constitution of this union or not? But we go, what, you see a debate. I promise to do this. I'm going to do this. He has no authority to do anything like that. To be honest, I'll be controversial. I don't care what he thinks, because if it was the way that we were to have everything brought up and played, this isn't even an issue. But since we act like he's an elected king, which the founders pretty much warned about and everything, we have an elected king with full pomp and circumstance, from the State of the Union to however the election, all that. So that's what we got now. We got an elected king, elected monarch. The Congress is pretty much null and void. It's ran by SCOTUS, and we have a war party that's in charge of everything, setting out bombs to Sharp and everything else. And then we're saying we're the greatest thing in the world while we're exporting porn, abortion, woke media, gay stuff, things like that.
Well, they say USA is usury, sodomy, and abortion. That's what USA stands for. Usury, sodomy, and abortion.
So I say I love my country. I love the Carolinas.
Yep, absolutely. Speaking of the dear leader Trump, something interesting happened in front of his trial today.
And we also are seeing an active shooter. An active shooter is in the park outside the court. We have a man he has set fire to himself. A man
There's
has
no gun.
emblazoned himself outside of the courthouse just now.
That gun is on
Cameras
fire.
are turning right now. A man has now lit himself on fire outside of the courthouse in Manhattan, where we are waiting a history to be made. A full jury panel is gone. We are watching a man who is fully emblazoned in the front of the courthouse today. We are watching multiple fires breaking out around his body and person. We have seen an arm that has been visible, that has been engulfed in total flames. There is chaos that is happening. People are wondering right now if people are in danger. I'm looking across the courtyard. There is a man racing to his aid. There's coats coming off to try to put out the fire. We have members of security details. NYPD is rushing to the scene. They are trying to come now. Officers are on the scene.
She is all over this, isn't she? She's got that cadence and everything down.
To try to put out. People are climbing over barricades.
They're trying to put him out with a gun. It's crazy. It's not the shooter.
Put out the flame on this man. He has lit himself out in fire in front of the courthouse right now. We are watching as they're playing. We can smell the air.
This is a nice rap song.
Smell the burning of some
right?
sort of flesh.
You can smell the burning. She reminds me of that skit from Tommy Boy when he starts talking about the accident.
I smell an actual fire extinguisher having been displayed. I see a person whose body appears to be on the ground being surrounded by officers. I have multiple officers. I've counted about a dozen officers on the scene. The fire is still burning. It's now in multiple locations. It continues to blaze. We right now have officers removing their coats, trying to surround this person to envelop their body to prevent them from further going into flames. You can smell.
It's just amazing how she went on like this. She got hired her for hockey play-by-play.
Or any play-by-play. She's fantastic, right?
Or she memorized that entire script because we didn't see a single body over there.
Yeah.
That's what I told Rick or someone else ago. Well, she went with the gun script and then saw the flames, which they must have been really small around her because that thing really got big.
Well, I mean, she got Ron Burgundy because somebody crossed out fire and put in shooter. So she started reading that and they're like, nah, it's psych. It's actually a fire. So you got to switch back over. So she switched over pretty seamlessly in that regard. But
that happened about an hour and a half ago, outside the Trump trial. And apparently that's a new thing. I didn't know that was a thing anymore. I'll show them. Let me light myself on fire. He said, what do you do? Sit around one day? So you know what I'm going to do? Hear me out. I'm going to be a flaming torch.
Go with me on this one. I don't know, gentlemen. I don't really have much on this. Thoughts on the guy setting himself on fire outside of the Trump trial.
All right, I'll go. If I put my hand over a flame, I go, woof. That guy didn't move.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm a wimp. I don't know. I'm a bad person for laughing at this, but I'm going, this is just weird. We're in clown planet times. People are lighting themselves on fire for Palestine. They're lighting themselves on fire of this. And
it's the new hotness right now, buddy. You're not cool unless you're lighting yourself on fire.
Man.
That's what it is. So you got to get with the program. Why aren't you with the program, Steve? You got to light yourself up, bud.
But it goes back to the made for drama thing. Again, terrible. There's a life that just ended. Trust me, I'm sorry, but at good point.
Possibly.
Yeah, possible. Because call me weird. Just that whole question and everything with the whole thing at the beginning. Are you that still when there's a bonfire like that on you? Are you not moving? I get what the Saints did, with incredible grace that they had, but a normal guy from New York, wherever he is, kneeling down in the middle of a bonfire pit. You're not hearing a scream. You're not seeing the guy move. Am I nuts for thinking that?
Nah, no, I don't think so. But this whole thing is it's another distraction, as you're saying, Steve, from what's going on.
I mean, 30 seconds, the dude doesn't move. Again, if I light a candle on fire and I put my hand over it, I'm screaming like a little girl.
It's like Talladega Nights when he's running around.
Yeah. Help me, Tom Cruise. Help me. Yeah, that's pretty much me as well. But I don't. It's nuts. The escalation, I'll say, of incidences that are taking place as more and more people feel that they're unheard, that they need to be seen, or whatever the case may be. It's just not a good thing.
And the question, everything with all the AI stuff. I mean, again, question reality. I'm not in New York. You're not in New York. None of us are in New York. None of us were outside there. Unless there's somebody, I'm to the point that unless somebody from there tells me what's going on, I don't want to be like Doubting Thomas, but in a sense, Doubting Thomas was one of those, hey guys, I believe you and all, but I need to see proof before I do that. I heard a couple of priests talking about that before. So, he wasn't imprudent going, I gotta, I'm taking your word for it. You know what I'm calling? You know what I mean by that? Yeah. Do we take it blindly from TV? That happened. When you can create a movie now that looks incredibly real, sex videos, whatever, with anybody's face and all that, and just play it, and we're supposed to believe it on TV. Which, again, call me nuts. The AI guys for just a couple months ago had some really good dog videos of them leap around in snow, and that looked for real.
Yeah, the AI stuff is pretty frightening.
For the sake of a soul out there, I pray it's just a psyop for some reason. For the sake of somebody, we don't want anybody dying. But if it is an actual soul that did that to themselves, man, the amount of zeal that people on both sides have for their cause puts us Catholics to shame. And
then, again, the guy didn't move, so you could put a mannequin, you could put some meat on that thing, light it up, because you don't see anybody running out there saying, hey, guys, look over here. No, you see the fire going up, and then we're supposed to believe what she's saying. I smell the meat. I smell the flesh. I see his arm. Like, dude does not move.
Nope.
He falls over and still doesn't even kind of move.
That's crazy. Yeah, that's really interesting how that whole
I know
thing
I'm going all Alex Jones. I'm just looking at it going, that's not, no way that guy doesn't move.
He has to. He absolutely has to move. Well, I mean, I'm kind of
looks like this is just, he looks like he's just scandalized beyond belief there.
Just tired, brothers. Just tired.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going with Fawaz's thought on this for the sake of the soul. Let's hope it wasn't. But
Phoebe says you have to be high. That's a high level of high that I don't know of. I mean, tally high. I mean, how high? That high? Aquaman high? I mean, how high?
Pretty high. Like we're talking, high. Yeah, we're talking pretty high on that one.
But then no one sees him come in this area. The cameras don't see him. All of a sudden, there's a 12-foot bonfire. I've been in that group of questioning everything for years now. Going right when Rona started, that had me going. I got a question. Sniffles. Do I have to not? We closed the state down over sniffles. So I don't know. Call me pessimistic.
No, just looking for a little bit more truth on that one.
You almost have to be at this point because the media, the government, and people in control, they've cried wolf so many times. They've things are just so unreal, so deceptive. You really can't take things at face value anymore. You can't take people for their word, especially during election season.
They made a robocall that sounded just like Brandon, and it was a $1 bet that a comedian put together. And and like I said, AI can be made to make movies. YouTube you have to click the thing. Is this made by AI or not? Because there's so many good AI videos out there anymore. You have no idea what's real or not. I mean, we're supposed to just buy CNN, who's never lied to us. But by the way, there's a guy that's on fire over there. You didn't see him. You didn't see him get lied, but just believe us. This is what's happening during Days of Our Trump, episode 16, season 4. Yeah. Vote for Donnelly.
There, bud. It's just another thing to take into account in that regard. So what else? We got a couple more videos here, Steve, to take a look at.
Well, if you want to talk about the Kennedys.
For us, he stood with the United Auto Workers. He is a man we can trust and who carries forth Bobby Kennedy's values and John Kennedy's values.
As you know, Carrie, the Biden campaign is concerned that your brother will potentially take votes away from President Biden in some of the very key and close swing states. Are you concerned that your brother will play potentially a spoiler role in this election?
You know, I think we all know this is going to be a very, very close election.
I'm Carrie
Kennedy.
Roy Kennedy. Kathleen Kennedy Townsend.
Chris Kennedy. And I'm here to proudly endorse Joe Biden.
Joe Biden. Joe Biden.
Our future is on the ballot in a way in which we haven't seen in generations.
The only way to win this election is for everybody to go out and vote for Joe Biden.
Thanksgiving dinner is going to be weird at that house.
RFK probably just won't go. But it's interesting that.
Why do they all sound like that?
Yeah, why do they all?
They all sound like them.
Yeah, that's crazy. But never doubt the Kennedys to put party over everything else. And maybe this is their way of trying to get back in to set up the young Kennedy down the line. But it's they're all just absolute vultures, and all these fake Catholics that got the Northeast out of being actually Catholic, right? People look at me crazy when I say like the Kennedys pretty much leaned on the bishops to make it okay for JFK to run for president, and all of his philandering and everything to kind of just look to the side. And once that took place, that was all part of that 60s revolt. That really was the downfall for Catholicism in New England. It absolutely destroyed it because, that the oldest Kennedy, it sounds like her brother, she's what they call progressive Catholic. She calls herself a progressive Catholic. And that's okay up there because, like, we said before, the bishops don't say anything in that regard. But let's wrap this up. And Fawaz, since it's been a while, who do you have for your Saint of the Week in Cry Room?
Saint of the Week? Oh, man, I might give you my Saint of the Month because I haven't been here in a while. I'm just really loving everything Harrison Butker is doing. Not only, just being such a class act, a great athlete, probably the best kicker in the NFL, but his work ethic, what he does outside of the field is just as important. And him sending that letter to Cardinal Dolan after we saw that the chaos that happened in the funeral with the trans people. He sent the letter. He had an interview with EWTN where he was strong in the pro-life stance, and he's just a good, solid role model for a lot of young men who want to be Catholic. So I'm gonna put him as my saint of the whatever. Cry Room, man, I could pick so many people. You could really pick Brandon for telling us that his uncle died and was eaten by cannibalists. I don't know what's going on through that guy's mind. But I'm gonna go with Diddy. Big Diddy. Being a big fan of Bad Boy in the 90s, Mace and those guys. Mace, Biggie, and those guys. I was listening to those guys back in the 90s. Which, by the way, my nostalgia came back. My wife and I are watching the series now, Quiet on Set. Have you guys heard of it?
No.
Yeah.
It's a documentary about Dan Schneider and Nickelodeon, all the stuff that was going on with the kids, and all of the shows that they created back in the 90s and how the kids were molested, and Amanda Bynes and Drake and Josh and all those guys. So it's a really interesting documentary. I definitely recommend it if you grew up at that time. But yeah, I put Diddy on there mainly because of the obvious reasons, but not only because of him, but because allowing himself to be inundated in that machine with Clyde Davis and those guys that really just ruined him as a person, which then he ended up ruining other people. It's a chain reaction when it comes to that type of stuff. It really is.
Steve, what do you got?
All right, I'll go with Cry Room. Let's go with Surveillance State.
Concern has been that individuals or small groups will draw some kind of twisted inspiration from the events in the Middle East to carry out attacks here at home. But now, increasingly concerning, is the potential for a coordinated attack here in the homeland, akin to the ISIS-K attack we saw at the Russia Concert Hall just a couple weeks ago.
So more of the warnings. China, meaning DC, is going through some kind of cyber attack. Polygon.
Republicans and Democrats in Congress are pushing for more FISA surveillance. Hopefully, Congress can reform this, but we know the FBI used FISA to try to illegally take down President Trump. Remember that? There was only one arrest, and that guy got away with a slap on the wrist. All the other participants of this coup have gone unpunished and were even given book deals or are on.
Anyway, we talked about this last week. There's a violation of the Fourth Amendment. Literally, they couldn't violate it anymore if they tried. Here's Whitney Webb's interview, Manufacturing Bipartisan Consent for Biometric Surveillance. It's all part of not only just Rona stuff that was becoming a Patriot Act that's come down, but the Rona stuff that's come down, and now talk about the chickens come home to roost. But my saint of the weeks, I'm going to go with the anti-U.S. protesters by hanging protected bat boxes on the camera poles because that thing is spying on them, and they figured out the loophole. You can't destroy a bat box in that area. So they put bat boxes over all the cameras, which is brilliant.
Evolution, bud. Evolution. That's the way to go. All right. So my saint of the week will be Dexter Taylor. If you don't know about him, go to my YouTube page, The Armed Catholic, and you can look at the interview that I have with him. He is a guy fighting for your God-given right to keep and bear arms. You got to check that out. And so Cry Room, I'll put myself in Cry Room for Twitter drama, stupid Twitter drama. If you know, then you know what I'm talking about. But Twitter is dumb, and it sucks us into needless drama. So I will put myself in the Cry Room for that. All right, folks, that's it for this episode of News from the Pew. Please like, subscribe, and share the News from the Pew. We will talk to you all next week. God bless, and Viva Cristo Rey.